So you've got your draft. It's good, it's solid. But how do we take it from just good enough to something truly exceptional? Well, that is exactly what we're going to break down right now. Let's dive into the strategy for turning that draft into a final research paper that really, really stands out. Okay, so here's where we're at, and here's where we're going. On the left, you've got the draft. It's sitting at around 1,300 words. You've got your basic analysis down. But our goal is over on the right, a much more significant paper, pushing toward 2,000 words. But look closer. The key difference isn't just the word count, right? It's that huge leap from basic to deep analysis. That's where the real work is, and honestly, that's where the A-plus potential lives. So how in the world do we build this bigger, better paper? We start with a blueprint. You need a clear, four-part structure that's going to organize your argument and make your ideas basically impossible to ignore. Let's walk through it together. And here it is. It's that simple. First up, you've got your introduction. That's the hook that grabs your reader and doesn't let go. Then you've got the core, the engine of your whole paper, the body paragraphs. Next, we've got what I like to call the pro-move, the counter-argument. This shows you're really thinking critically. And finally, the conclusion, that's your landing, where you bring it all home. Now, before we go any further, let's be absolutely crystal clear on this one thing. Yeah, the assignment asks for a longer paper, but just adding fluff and filler sentences, that is not going to cut it. The goal here isn't to add words, it's to add substance. We're talking more research, more evidence, and most importantly, more of your own thoughtful analysis. All right, let's get into the most critical part of this whole expansion, your body paragraphs. Think of these as the core engine of your essay. This is where you actually build and prove your argument. Expanding these is how you're going to hit that higher word count with real quality content. So, how do you build a body paragraph that's truly powerful? Well, it all comes down to 5 essential components. Every single one of your body paragraphs needs to have these 5 ingredients to be effective. It's kind of like a recipe for a perfect paragraph. Okay, so let's break down this recipe. First, every paragraph needs a sharp topic sentence. This is like a mini thesis for that specific point, and it absolutely has to link back to your main argument. Next, you bring in your evidence, starting with your primary source. Then you layer on top of that with support from a scholarly secondary source. Now, step 4 is the most important one, your own thoughtful analysis. And finally, you land the plane with a wrap-up sentence that really clinches the point and smoothly guides the reader to the next idea. If you take away only one thing, let it be this. Focus on analysis, not summary. Let's make that really concrete. Summary is just reporting what you see, like, Critic X says the novel's ending is pessimistic. Okay, that's a fact. But analysis, that's you interpreting it. Critic X's argument for a pessimistic ending is compelling, but it totally overlooks the subtle imagery of rebirth in the final chapter, which suggests something way more complex, maybe even hopeful. See the difference? You're not just a reporter. You're entering the conversation, explaining why the stuff matters and how it proves your point. And what fuels all that amazing analysis? Your research arsenal. For this paper, remember, you need your one primary source, the main thing you're studying, and a minimum of 6 scholarly secondary sources. These academic articles and books, they're the foundation. They're the tools you're going to use to build your argument. Okay, so once your core argument is feeling strong and well-supported, it is time to make the pro move. This is the one step that separates a good paper from a truly great one. Adding a counter-argument. It shows you've really thought about the topic from all the different angles. So why do this? You might think that bringing up an opposing viewpoint weakens your paper, but actually, it's the exact opposite. It makes your argument so much stronger. It shows your reader that you have intellectual confidence, that you've wrestled with the complexities, and you still arrived at your conclusion. It's a power move. So what does a strong counterargument actually look like? Well, it's a simple 3-step process. First, you introduce a credible opposing view. Don't pick a weak one. Engaging with a strong opponent makes you look even better. Second, you explain their perspective fairly. Acknowledge where it's valid, but also point out its limits. And finally, you pivot back to your own argument, using your evidence to show why your position is ultimately the more convincing one. All right, we've built the core of the paper, we've elevated it with that pro-level counterargument. Now that the heavy lifting is done, it's time for that final crucial stage, the polish. This is where we make sure all that hard work really shines. Let's get into the pre-submission scan. Now, take a look at this. This is how the paper is actually evaluated. Your grade is split equally across 5 different categories: your thesis, your organization, how you use your sources, the depth of your analysis, and your formatting and grammar. Each one is worth a full 20 points. What does that mean? It means that sloppy MLA formatting can hurt your grade just as much as a weak argument. Everything matters here. So, before you even think about hitting that submit button, run through this final checklist. Did you actually use the feedback you got on your draft? Are your transitions between paragraphs smooth and logical? Have you introduced and explained every single quote? And is that MLA formatting, from the citations to the works cited page, absolutely perfect? Look, you have the draft, and now you have the blueprint. The path from a good paper to a great one is all about adding strategic depth, not just empty words. So the only question left is, are you ready to turn that draft into a masterpiece?